How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. If you wish to be on the program, very delighted to have you. I gotta just say, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this right now, but on the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, you will not be surprised to learn how dishonest the left is being. So, for example, take this clip. This is Evan Smith, who is he works with the Atlantic and the LBJ school down at the University of Texas. Says Mike Pence tells Tim Alberta the First Amendment doesn't protect entertainers. Let me actually play for you the actual clip of what Mike Pence actually said.
Constitution protects against government censorship of individuals. And we ought ever to be vigilant to ensure the right of every American to express their views without government interference or censorship. The First Amendment, though, does not protect entertainers who say crass or thoughtless things, as Jimmy Kimmel did in the wake of a national tragedy. And private employers have every right to dismiss employees, whether they're television talk show hosts or otherwise, if they violate the standards of that company. Now,
so, yeah, he says the First Amendment doesn't protect entertainers, and what does he mean by that? From employers, not from the government. So, Evan Smith drips out the excerpt, says the First Amendment doesn't protect entertainers, and what does Mike Pence do? Yeah, the First Amendment doesn't protect entertainers. Their employers can fire them. The government can't prosecute them, but private employers have the right to dismiss employees, whether they're talk hosts or TV hosts or otherwise, if they violate the standards of that company. Y'all, I got free speech rights. I broadcast over the air across the nation. I can stand on the street corner and I could say the N-word as loud as I want. I can say it. If I say it through this microphone, I'll lose my job before the next sentence is uttered. I wouldn't say it, but you can say whatever you want, wherever you want. You have that right, and the government can't prosecute you. But there are 7 words I can't say on the radio without getting fined by the FCC. And there are other words I can't say because I'll lose my job. There are offensive things I can't say because they violate the standards of the company for which I'm employed. There are other offensive things I can say that don't violate the standards of this company, but might violate the standards of one of the 71 affiliates that I'm on, and they decide to take me off. It's a free market business. I wish Brendan Carr hadn't said what he said because it complicates the story and it's FCC bullying. It's FCC bullying. The reality is when the 2 major ABC network groups stand up and say, we're not going to air a show anymore until there's an apology, ABC doesn't have a lot of wiggle room. They don't have wiggle room. And you can be upset, you can be mad, whatever you need to be. But understand the reality is that this is at the end of the day a business decision. And I do kind of think that Nexstar and Sinclair probably were knowing that where Brandon Carr was going to go and they were prepared for it. And the left's response, well, they have business before the FCC. You know what? There were plenty of times during the Biden administration where you had media entities that wanted to consolidate or sell or buy, And they performed for the Biden administration, and the left was totally fine with it. You'll have to forgive me for not really caring when the left is met by the standard that it itself has deployed repeatedly, and now they don't like the rules being turned against itself. That's really what it's about. And you do got to get it around your mind that the left doesn't want to give up the power. They just don't like the power being wielded against them. On CNN, you have some of the most absurd commentary. Just listen. This is Larry Sabato, who is at this point a completely broken political analyst who's gotten so partisan that even the University of Virginia has distanced themselves from a lot of his commentary.
I hope it's not going where I fear it is and where I see things potentially going when things get dark. And that is the authoritarian highway. You know, at first I thought maybe we were taking a step or two in that direction, then it was a step a day. And now, you know, we've got a high-speed vehicle on the authoritarian highway. And I do believe the Trump administration is moving there because they've been so successful at it. People have caved. They have bent the knee, almost all of these institutions. And
sorry, that was me.
I hope institutional opposition. But right now, there's no opposition that really matters. It's not happening. It's not coalescing. And the Democrats have done an exceptionally poor job, even though I admit they don't have that institutional power that they'd like to have. But in terms of organization and communicating their message, you know, they get pretty low on the grayscale. I'd say, you know, D or F.
Well, you know what he also said? He also said that you got to go back to John Adams and the Alien and Sedition Acts. The Alien and Sedition Acts. John Adams' administration defined such a dark period against free speech. No, you know, you don't actually have to do that. You can go to when they took Gina Carano off The Mandalorian because she was skeptical of the COVID vaccine, or when all of these disinformation experts came out and said that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real, and so the New York Post deserved to get its social media accounts turned off. This is Scott Jennings from last night on CNN arguing with some progressive.
Scott, but I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know here. You sometimes offend people. I hear about it on the socials. Do you think that you should then be held to the same standard that you're asking for, that if someone says that you're offensive, that you're not doing civic discourse, that CNN should kick you off? I'm not worried about you and that happening to you in the present regime, but I am worried about other people in this building.
Two things. We don't fall under the same statutory regime. A. B, I expect to get fired every day. This is a tough business. And if I were Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, I'm surprised that a guy who once wore blackface and caused large-breasted women to jump on trampolines lasted this long in the media business to begin with. He was long past his sell date, and the fact that he couldn't realize that and was going down this road of partisan hackery, being unfunny and demonized.
You know, have you ever noticed that whenever he starts getting on a roll, making a point, Abby goes, Scott. You know, I told y'all last Monday he gave a speech in Middle Georgia and I introduced him on stage. Scott's a friend, and he said that the rumor in the building at CNN is they're going to rename the network Scott, because they say it way more than CNN on air. They really do. They really do. And it's just bizarre to me, the outrage from these people who they're perfectly willing to use it against conservatives, and they're absolutely clueless. That they flat out deny these things happen that you and I can all remember happened, and they're gaslighting us. Now, I got to move on to J.B. Pritzker, because, you know, J.B. Pritzker's been highlighting peacekeeping, non-police peacekeeping in Chicago. I got to read this and also stare at Kobe's face here in the control room, because it's going to just blow his mind. I've saved this one. Less than a week before a crash and grab burglary crew killed an innocent man on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago last Thursday, one of the men now charged with that murder donned a peacekeeper uniform and posed for a one-on-one picture with Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois. But wait, there's more. Some law enforcement experts are more concerned the accused man was able to stand directly next to the state's most powerful executive despite outstanding warrants in 4 states. Yes, 55-year-old Kellen McMiller's role as a peacekeeper. Turns out he's wanted in 4 states. Pritzker decided to highlight the man being a non-police peacekeeper helping keep the peace. But just before 5 a.m. on September 11th, a group of burglars backed a pickup truck into a display window at Louis Vuitton on North Michigan Avenue. Video shows several men running through the shattered storefront, returning with trash bags filled with merchandise. $700,000 worth of goods were stolen. Turns out one of them was this peacekeeper who J.B. Pritzker had highlighted, saying it's folks like these that we need more of, doing the hard work of community violence prevention, not troops on the ground to undermine efforts fighting crime. Wow. Yeah, so the guy who was a peacekeeper, keeping the peace, fighting the crime on the ground, turned out to be wanted in 4 states and backed a truck into a Louis Vuitton, stealing $700,000 of stuff after posing with the governor of Illinois. Holy moly. Holy moly. McMiller mistakenly identified himself as Keller McMillan, and 6 men are. It was a fatal crash and grab. They whipped out of the place and apparently collided into a vehicle, killing the driver. Now, the Miami Herald says McMiller was accused of throwing a bottle of Hennessy at an officer's squad car before getting into a confrontation with a cop that ended with McMiller being sent to the ground with a taser discharge. He was charged with battery of an officer, resisting the officer with violence, and carrying an open container of alcohol. And he's charged with murder during the commission of a forcible felony burglary and felony theft in connection with the crash and grab and death of the man whose car they hit pulling out of it. He's wanted in Florida, Indiana, and Wisconsin, in addition to now Chicago, where he's charged with murder after posing with the governor, who the governor used the man as an example of peaceful citizens serving as non-law enforcement peacekeepers, keeping peace in their community. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, the Democrats are not serious about crime. I could have put the period after serious, I guess. They're not serious. They're not serious about crime. They're highlighting felons as individuals engaged in peacekeeping roles. They're not vetting these people. Honestly, so take everything else out of the situation for just a minute. How did the governor of Illinois, who's also a billionaire, by the way, how did his security team allow a man to get close to the governor, close enough to take a picture, who is wanted in multiple states? How did it happen? In fact, one of the people involved in this situation, one of the law enforcement officials involved in the situation, says, I know some people approach politicians and ask to take pictures, but if the photo is posed, it reveals an absolute lack of due diligence on the part of the governor's team, in my opinion. Yes, it does. Complete lack. I mean, they actually endangered the governor's life as the governor wanted to try to highlight that we have a way to keep peace in Chicago that doesn't involve law enforcement, and it happens to be a felon. I'm sorry, but the jokes write themselves on this one, too. The Democrats are not serious about crime, and it shows how unserious they are about crime that he would pose with a man wanted in multiple states who, after posing with the governor, committed murder in the process of robbery. Well, you can't take Democrats seriously at this point, really, on any topic, from securing the border to crime. The President of the United States is flying home from the United Kingdom. They left a few hours ago en route back to the United States. A pretty successful meeting, it seems. We didn't really spend a lot of time covering. It was a pretty quick meeting. It was a state visit. This is from the Wall Street Journal. For 2 days, the British government lavished President Trump with regal ceremonies, a state banquet, a flyby, and even sky diapers, jumping out of an aircraft to unfurl the U.S. flag. On Thursday, Trump repaid the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer by tiptoeing around their biggest differences, lauding billions of dollars of U.S. tech investment and reaffirming his attachment to the transatlantic alliance. During a joint press conference at Chequers, the Prime Minister's country retreat, the president slapped Starmer on the back and papered over potential cracks of several thorny issues, including Palestinian statehood, immigration, energy policy, free speech, and the removal of the UK's Washington ambassador over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. The ambassador's not Trump's. I have a disagreement with the prime minister on that score. One of our few disagreements, actually, Trump said when speaking of his Starmer support for Palestinian statehood, but the president didn't linger on the subject. The visit's success underscores how Britain seems to have perfected the art of managing Trump. The U.S. president, unpopular in Britain, was kept away from the crowds, given a heavy dose of tightly choreographed British pageantry, and the opportunity to ink a deal. The U.S. government unveiled a tech partnership, which Starmer said would break all records and result in about $340 billion of investment flowing both ways across the Atlantic. At the same time, Trump was treated to unprecedented royal hospitality and was carefully curated to his tastes. He watched with King Charles as a military band performed YMCA, sat next to Princess Catherine at a white tie dinner, and gave a gushing speech in which he called the event one of the greatest honors of his life. On Thursday, he talked about an unforgettable parade at Windsor Castle. Not a bad trip. There are a lot of differences still over how to proceed with the Ukraine situation and with the Palestinian situation. But the British do know how to work with Donald Trump. And being part Scottish, he loves the country, has some great golf course properties over there. It was a good event. But not a whole lot of news was made, which is very notable for something like this, that there wasn't a lot of news made. Now, if you want to find out about why the British are our friends and how they used to not be our friends, you can take some great classes on history at Hillsdale College for free. Their video lectures got about 30 minutes per episode. The number of episodes depends on the class. You go to ericforhillsdale.com today, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. You sign up with Hillsdale College. You begin getting education. In fact, it's been a while since I've gone to the website. So ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK. They got a couple recommended courses on the front. Understanding Capitalism. The Federalist Papers is 10 lessons. Capitalism is 7 lessons. Introduction to Aristotle's Ethics, How to Lead a Good Life is 10 lessons. And they're all by Hillsdale's faculty. Philosophy, history, politics, literature, economics, math, chemistry, they're all there. And depending on the number of lessons, they're all 30-minute episodes. You do it at your own pace. You get a certificate of completion. And you just get smarter about a topic you're interested in with some of the best faculty at Hillsdale College. Go to Eric, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com today. Sign up with them. Your phone calls when we come back, 877-973-7425. Hello there. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very happy to have you. You know, so let me just vent to you for a moment, please. It's one of my singular frustrations right now. I have a couple of websites that I like to use for show prep, and I actually do my own show prep. I don't have a team doing show prep. So Charlie, Phillip, and Fisher, they add stuff. We have a Slack chat app. And they'll throw in some links to help me, particularly when I'm traveling. But I do 9/10 of my own show prep. I stay up late at night. I get up early in the morning. I'm looking at news all the time. I don't even read for pleasure anymore. For the most part, I'm constantly doing show prep. And there are a number of news aggregators, whether it's the Drudge Report or Memorandum or other things that I've looked at in the past, and they're also now broken by the left. there's a rumor, I don't know whether it's true or not, that Matt Drudge sold the Drudge Report. I think he's still involved with it, but by and large, it is clearly now a progressive operation that shapes the news to cater to progressive sensibilities. And ironically, it's progressives for so long distrusted the Drudge Report that it gets a lot of traffic by habit. It doesn't really get a lot of new traffic, I don't think. That's not my impression of it. I don't hear progressives citing the Drudge Report or anything, and it's just a news aggregator. But it's also broken. I look at CNN, where the network tries to get me on, and 9 out of 10 times, I think, maybe 7 out of 10, but I think 9 out of 10 times that they want me on is because I've criticized something the Trump administration did. They never are interested in having me on to praise or defend the Trump administration. Now, in full fair disclosure, Anderson Cooper's team actually wanted me to come on tonight to talk about the Jimmy Kimmel situation, and I would have defended the FCC and the situation, but I've got a charity event, so I couldn't do it tonight. Otherwise, I would have. But more often than not, it's to criticize. In fact, I got an email the other day from them saying, hey, we saw you criticize Pam Bondi on Twitter. Do you want to come on and talk about it? Not really. I praise the Trump administration regularly, and I just note that CNN doesn't want me on rarely except to criticize the president. And why bother? And CNN is, I mean, you've got the roundtable discussion. You've got the what do they call the struggle session with Abby Phillips. That's the name of the show. Struggle session with Abby Phillips. You've got Scott Jennings on there. Scott. They should rename that show to Scott. You got all the progressives in Scott, and the moment Scott makes a good point, Abby Phillips is like, Scott, shut up. We got to move on to the next person. MSNBC, you got the New York Times, you got the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal is more fair than the rest of them, but still its news reporters can sometimes be on the left pretty regularly. The Washington Post, USA Today may be the most broken of them all. I saw a column the other day. It was a USA Today, and I knew immediately who wrote it. It was that left-wing woman who covers sports for USA Today, lamenting that sports teams were having moments of silence for Charlie Kirk. You can't unite the nation around that. I knew immediately who it was. This is the same woman who was upset when college football came back during COVID because the players might get COVID. I listen, I don't care about the views of the left and the right. I'm on the right. I find it notable that the national news corps is dominated by progressive narrative, progressive editorial, and they get mad when you point it out and say, well, the truth is just on our side. What an arrogant thing to say. There's so much brokenness about Trump, and it's not Trump. It's the people who hate Trump, who have these principled objections they claim about Donald Trump. I mean, the fact of the matter is Jimmy Kimmel shrank ABC's audience. The View shrinks ABC's audience. These are two shows that ABC puts on that get them a lot of buzz, but the notoriety from so many people is alienating to those people. They're not even trying to cover the news accurately, fairly, and unbiased. Their editorial worldview is of the left. CBS News, CBS News is still pushing the line that there's no motive for Charlie Kirk's killer, and the right is trying to claim he's on the left, but there's actually no motive. No, there actually is from the DA. I find it tired. I find it trite. And I don't find it very informative anymore either. It's just progressive outrage. There's people aren't being educated by the media. They're not being informed by the media. The media's trying to get them to be outraged about stuff. I try to come in here, and days like this, it's actually a hard day to do a news show covering the news because the only thing the people in the press want to talk about is Jimmy Kimmel got suspended, not fired, by ABC News, and it's an affront to the First Amendment, but firing Roseanne wasn't, Gina Carano wasn't, all the other times that the right's been censored, they were not affronts to the First Amendment. People got what they deserved. Kimmel, it's an affront to the First Amendment, but it's not. And you can't get fair coverage. People ask me how I do my show prep. I got to tell you, I spend a lot of time reading everything because for every news report you get, everybody's got a narrative now, and they're leaving stuff out. So you got to read like 5 different takes. And my real problem, too, on the right is that we've got a lot of crummy news sites on the right. No disrespect intended to Fox News, but 9 out of 10 times, I keep saying 9 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10 with Fox. When I read a story on foxnews.com, it's Fox News reporting on another journalistic outlet breaking the news. And it's just Fox's summary of what the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or someone else reported. Where are the good reporters on the right? The Free Beacon, I think, has them all. There's a lot of original journalism at the Free Beacon that's not commenting on other people's news. And then the websites on the right. I mean, the Washington Times, the Washington Examiner, God bless them, great people. I got good friends who work at those places. But I mean, I go to the New York Times' website, and it is a pleasing to look at website. And on the right, pop-up video, pop-up video, pop-up video, pop-up, pop-up, pop-up video. You can't watch. You've got ad blocker, ad blocker, ad blocker, ad blocker. Eat this one grain, and you'll boost your testosterone. And it's got a picture of a worm or something. Like, why? Why can't you have credible news sites on the right without all the pop-ups and videos and garbage? Because Republican donors want to return on their investment financially. They don't just want to invest for the cause. Frankly, that's the answer. But my goodness, it gets frustrating. And then the obsession about Trump. Not everything is about Donald Trump. Not everything is about Donald Trump. And I think everybody needs to hear that on the left and the right, that it's not always about Donald Trump. There are a lot of stories out there that aren't about Donald Trump, and yet nobody wants to cover the stories unless they're about Donald Trump. You know, we do plenty of research, I've told you all around here, and one of the stories that even Trump supporters are tired of talking about is Donald Trump. There's so much more out there than Trump, and yet people are losing information. You know, there's been this massive upheaval in Nepal. The communists shut down social media websites and other things, and students are rebelling in Nepal. The situation is destabilized. You're hard-pressed to hear about it in the national media, though, because Donald Trump actually isn't involved in the story. The Ukrainians have shot down more Russian drones that actually appear to have come from Iran, a growing escalation of drones from Iran being shot down, suggesting there are under-the-table arms deals happening. It's not about Donald Trump, so it's not on the front page. Xi Jinping, the president of China, has fired senior military leaders over there, replacing them with other people. All the military leaders that he's fired were military leaders that he himself had appointed, and now he's fired them. Some of them have disappeared from public eye. No one knows where they are. It looks like he's trying to get rid of corruption and gear up to invade Taiwan. You haven't heard about it because it's not about Donald Trump. If it's not about Donald Trump, it's like if it bleeds, it leads in the media now. If it's about Trump, it leads because they're so broken by Donald Trump. There's a whole world out there that doesn't involve Donald Trump. And, you know, this gets back to something I was saying earlier as well, that the people who are angry at conservative Bible-believing pastors because they didn't make it about Charlie Kirk in their sermon on Sunday, that's idolatry in my mind. I go to church to hear the gospel message, not about the political world around me. I make one exception, two exceptions for that. On the March for Life weekend, having a sermon about life, and on the weekend of the Obergefell decision, having a sermon about marriage, I'm okay with those. But otherwise, I don't want political commentary for my pulpit. And even then, I don't want political commentary. I want actual Bible. But seeing some of these conservative commentators who want to divide the church, they want the church to be expressly political. And you need to understand this is happening. There is a movement on the right now, to poison the minds of Christians going to church, to insist to these Christians that it is the obligation of pastors to preach about politics, and that if the pastors don't preach about politics from the pulpit, that they must be woke. And I've seen it with my own eyes with people I know who are mad at their pastors because their pastors aren't talking about the daily politics in the pulpit. You should want a reprieve from the world when you go to church, not a commentary on daily politics with scripture references to back up your worldview. That's what the left does. That's progressive Christianity right there. And yet people are worshiping at the altar of politics right now. And you have malicious people on the right who want to poison good churches with politics because they're not building an eternal kingdom. They're building their own clout. And it's shameful. It's as shameful as the other side being so obsessed about Trump. This is not healthy for our society. Let me go to Steve's phone call. Steve, welcome to the Eric Erickson Show. Steve, how are you?
Pretty good, Eric. I want to thank you for all that you put into the shows that you put on. I can't imagine what you got to go through. And also to thank you about Eden Pure. It works exactly like you say it does.
I'm glad to see proof positive people wipes out those
My question for you
voters.
is about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in judgment of him, but the guy he was when he was at Fox to the guy he is today, that you put on, I don't know who to believe with. I know where he gets his money from, and when we're going to call Qatar out for who they are. Just maybe
honestly, Steve, I never knew Tucker well. We were friendly. We went to breakfast a couple of times when he was getting the Daler collar off. He wanted to pick my brain. Nice guy. One of the people who pushed me to get into fly fishing. Very nice, and still apparently a very nice guy. But I have no idea, like the trying to tie Charlie Kirk to Israel. That. You got the Candace Owens stuff out there that somehow the Israelis were behind his assassination, that they're trying to co-opt Turning Point USA. By the way, Turning Point USA has announced that Erica Kirk will take over her husband's position with the company, with the organization. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's audience capture or it's money. My guess is audience capture. He's trying to fill a void that Alex Jones once filled, and there's an audience for it. There clearly is. He and Candace Owens get massive eyeballs on their social media feeds and their live streams and stuff, and people still cite Tucker Carlson. I find it to be deeply demented stuff, frankly. So much of it deeply demented stuff. The anti-Semitism, the carrying water for Vladimir Putin's Russia, I got nothing. I think he's trying to build a niche audience and is captured by that audience now and doesn't want to lose his audience. That's my theory. I don't know if he believes what he says. I tend to think when people say things that they believe those things. And if he believes those things, there are people left and right now who want you to hate the United States. This gets me, as a tie-in there to the 9/11 conspiracy theories that 9/11 was an inside job. There are listeners right now who believe 9/11 was an inside job. And I want you to think about what they're saying here is that your government willfully exterminated over 2,000 Americans for some agenda. Deep down, it is a deep hatred of the government. There are things about the government I hate, but I love the United States of America. And the 9/11 conspiracy theory at the end of the day is the same sort of hatred for America that Osama bin Laden pushed in a different package. That the American government is somehow evil and bad and wanted to exterminate thousands of Americans for some cause. I've got plenty of criticisms of my government, but wanting to exterminate willfully American citizens for some hidden agenda is not one of them. And yet that's where we are now with some on the left and some on the right. And it is really horseshoe theory. I think they have come full circle. The far left and the far right have met at the bottom of the horseshoe, and they're the same people. They're anti-Semites who hate the United States and are trying to sow distrust against this country. And they have an audience of malcontented souls who believe conspiracy theories, who have probably made life decisions that haven't worked out for them. And instead of recognizing they're the fault of their condition, they got to blame the man, whoever the man is, the police, the government, some conspiracy theory. Instead of taking ownership for their failures in their life, they got to blame somebody else. And the far left and far right have all headed down that road, and I really, frankly, want nothing to do with it and don't think it's healthy for anybody to have anything to do with it. I'm doing a charity event tonight in Atlanta for the local children's hospital. It's a bourbon and butts event I've done for a number of years now. I can tell you about it because you can't get in. We've got a list and security and all of that. But I'm doing something different this year. I have acquired a bunch of bottles of bourbon as gifts that I know absolutely nothing about. Valor Bourbon, Dark Arts Bourbon, and some of them I've opened and tasted and I like. Some of them have not yet been opened, and I decided I've got all these bottles of bourbon that are like really small batch bourbons from very small distilleries, And so tonight, I got a couple staples. Like Basil Hayden is in Calumet Bourbon are probably my two favorites. The 10 and the 15-year Calumet are exquisite. Basil Hayden is my tend to go to because you can get it everywhere. And I got some of those. But then I've got these rare, hard to find, never heard of bourbon, some of which I know nothing about. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring these up. And the 50 of us, we're going to have barbecue and taste bourbons that I have never tasted before, and they haven't either. Should be an interesting time. Before I get out of here, here's your laugh for the day. I want to read you a tweet. This is from P.E. Moskowitz. TikTok owned by right-wing conglomerate, Twitter owned by a Nazi, every TV station bending the knee. Anyone who doesn't follow directives getting sued. America has never been great, but we at least had free-ish speech. What will we have left after this? Punchline? Same guy wrote a book called The Case Against Free Speech. So the guy who opposed free speech when the left was in charge, now suddenly big believer in free speech. Funny how that works. I'm a big believer in free speech, y'all, but come on, grow up. Now let me tell you about the Swiss America. They've been telling us about a secret war on cash. They would love to give you their report, The Secret War on Cash, if you call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. You can get their report. Just text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646 or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. The Secret War on Cash, the government's coming after you, your digital currency, your paper and coins, trying to steer you to credit and debit so they can control what you spend. Go to 800-289-2646. Text them my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. Or just go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. Get the link from there. Fill out the form. They'll send you the Secret War on Cash report. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can help you with your retirement and your finances and saving your hard-earned cash. They are rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They've been the leader in precious metals for 40 years in this country. 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com/Eric. Message and data rates may apply. Now, I'm going to go have some bourbon with some donors to the Children's Hospital, and then I'm going to hop a flight. Well, I got to go to another event later, and then I'm going to hop a flight and go somewhere that I'm not allowed to tell you all about to do another event I'm not allowed to tell you about, but I'll be back on the radio tomorrow. See you all then.